could break an axle like that?
Could you shut up?
Hey, I don't need to spend the night out here.
Cry, baby.
Kevin Bacon's very wise, I think, in terms of what he chooses to do and how he's managed his career. You know, he's always said, I just want to keep working. It's been a tremendously long career and one that's kind of kept reinventing itself.
Uplink telemetry, command module to accept, right?
That's affirmed. Go ahead and try it.
Uplink completed.
His whole persona and the way that he actually conducts himself, the way he still manages to be super engaging, really charming, really seductive, and yet very edgy. There's nothing conventional about all that. There's nothing conventional about the way he looks, and there's nothing conventional about the way he acts.
Which he felt was the best way to...
Well, in boxing, there's always that first moment, and you see it in the challenger's face. It's that moment that he feels the impact from the champ's first jab. It's kind of a sickening moment when he realizes that all those months of the pep talks and the hype, psyching yourself up, had been delusional all along. You could see it in Frost's face. If he didn't know the caliber of the man that he was up against before the interview started, he certainly knew it halfway through the president's first answer.
So he's able to fill the screen like a star or vanish completely into the role. And that's the kind of range that's rare in an actor. You tend to have stars, character actors, and not much in between, but he's both and more. And that's a good career to have.
Hey, what's this I see? I thought this was a party! Let's dance!
Kevin Bacon was born in 1958 in Philadelphia.
He was the youngest of 6, which might go some way to accounting for his desire to become an actor. There was a constant need for his parents' attention, which he didn't get an awful lot of. But as you said, there was no acting in the Bacon blood. He looked back through the family and there never been an actor. There was a distant cousin who'd done some work in the theatre, but beyond that, it was highly unusual for an actor to emerge. His father, Edmund, was an eminent architect in the area. He had written books on famous architectural pieces and was quite well known.
His mother was a liberal activist and a teacher, and very concerned with imbuing in her children a love of the arts. All of these things sort of sent Kevin into the arts sphere. He was at Julia Masterman's school, but he also went to the Manning Street Theatre Actors School. And while he was there, he really developed a love not just for acting, but also for music.
He wasn't really taken up by academic pursuits, and his family didn't seem to mind so much. They didn't value earning great wealth or great success. It was very much about where would you be happy, what would you like to do. And so when he decided at the age of 17 to go to New York to study at the Circle and the Square Drama School, they were right behind him and they supported him all the way. He went there and very rapidly, really at the final year of drama school, he was spotted for his first film project, which was National Lampoon's Animal House.
Now, I'm not going to say that Omega's the best house on campus, but a lot of outstanding guys figure they'll pledge Omega or they won't pledge at all. We do have more than our share of campus leaders. Something that never looks bad on your permanent record, Chip.
Well, sure. Everybody I talk to says Omega's the best, but I hate to seem, pushy.
Let the unacceptable candidates worry about that, because after tonight, there you are, Kent. I'm Greg Marmalard, president of Omega House, and I'd like you to meet my friends, Mandy Pepperidge.
Hello.
Hi, we already met.
Kevin Bacon had a stroke of luck. He was 17, he was studying at this school in New York, and John Landis was putting together National Lampoon's Animal House, which was his parody of the various cliques and societies at modern American universities. It was a real kind of joke element. But what he was looking for was young, preppy, student-like faces. Casting directors went out to the acting schools basically with this request. Have you got anybody who looks preppy and young and studenty? And Kevin Bacon was put forward. They said, we've got this guy. He does look kind of young and preppy. I think he's what you're looking for. Because they were casting, there's two houses in Animal House. Delta Tai Chi, which is the kind of the raucous one, and there's Omega House, which is the kind of the stiffs, the guys in the blazers. They're the enemy. So there's kind of the cool dropouts and the smarmy being an important word, kind of upper crust, people who always put the other house down. It was a rivalry between two houses. That was the comic sort of joke of the film. And they were casting for the posh house, as it were. So they wanted these preppy looking things. And Kevin Bacon, very naive about the whole auditioning process, about what it required to be in movies, was put before John Landis, the director. And John Landis said, do smarmy for me.
Bacon didn't know what smarmy meant, but he sort of pulled a face, and John Landis liked it and cast him as Chip in the film, as one of the students in the posh fraternity.
National Lampoon's Animal House was a huge success. At one point there was a possibility of it becoming a TV show, which Kevin Bacon turned down, went back to New York, where he worked as a waiter and took the odd role in off-Broadway productions, before getting cast in Friday the 13th, a slasher flick, one of the first of the genre, and in many ways affectionately beloved by even those who aren't necessarily fans of this particular genre.
What about Ned?
I don't love Ned.
He keeps acting like such a jerk.
Nettie!
That's what we call him.
I thought you wanted to give him one of your motherly lectures. Look, Nettie's gonna do whatever Nettie wants to do, you know? It's gonna storm. You can tear down that valley like a son of a gun.
He did work on soaps on American TV, where he learned professionalism, he learned to graft, but he said those scripts were so bad he couldn't bear it. It wasn't like something he enjoyed at all. He did little bits of Broadway. He worked early on with Sean Penn on a play, so he got to know his contemporaries. And he did the statutory horror movie. And there is around Kevin Bacon something of what you might call a cult. He has a certain presence in terms of his celebrity, and many of his films sort of contribute to that idea of him. And the fact that he's in the original Friday the 13th is just part of the Kevin Bacon cult. Friday the 13th was basically, it was a takeoff of John Carpenter's Halloween. It was the kind of birth of the slasher movie, made very cheaply, and involved a sort of gang of teens going to Crystal Lake, this kind of remote country retreat by a lake, and getting killed one by one by some disguised killer.
And Kevin Bacon's appearance is relatively brief, but it is widely considered to be one of the classics of the genre because it was at the beginning of a new school of prosthetic horror, in a sense. So his character, the plot of the film is typical. There's a group of teenagers who, in this particular case, they've reopened a 1950s summer camp, and the camp counselors are getting everything ready. There is a legend that at one point back in the 1950s, two kids were killed, inevitably after having sex. That's one of the punishments that horror films mete out for romance. And so Kevin Bacon's character has indeed just had sex and is smoking weed, which automatically marks you out for fatality. He's lying on his bed and something falls on his face. He looks up. A hand comes out from the bed, grabs him around the throat, and then an arrow just spikes its way up through his throat. Now, he was angled on the bed so that he was under, basically only his head was on the pillow and there was a plastic neck. But they only had one plastic neck. So if that particular shot had gone wrong, then that was the end of it. They didn't know what they were going to do with him. So mercifully, the trick was pulled off. And for years after this, no matter what he did, even after some of his really far bigger, higher profile films, this is still the photograph that more people ask him to sign than any other, the picture of his death in Friday the 13th. Absolutely baffles him.
Following Friday the 13th, Bacon appeared in Only When I Laugh, before working with Barry Levinson in 1982's Diner.
Just breaking windows, Book.
We're gonna take a short break and then we'll be right back.
What? It's a smile.
Come on, don't be a schmuck.
I know. Glass is made from sand. How come you can see through it?
Leave the windows alone. What's the matter with you?
It's a smile, that's all.
Yeah, I'm cracking up. Fenwick, you break another window, and I'm gonna give you a fat lip.
Dinah is Barry Levinson's absolutely remarkable film about a bunch of young people in a town, a small town, who basically hang out. There is no plot. It is an authentic recreation of teenagers who are on the verge of adulthood and deciding what they're going to do. There are 4 main guys and 2 girls. Kevin Bacon plays the sort of rich one of the gang. He's the one who's a sort of trust fund boy. And he was very intimidated by his fellow actors, including Mickey Rourke and Steve Guttenberg, because Barry Levinson wanted them to do as much improvisation as possible. And Kevin Bacon wasn't particularly good at improvisation. In fact, he was rather sort of nervous about it. The good thing about that is that it suits his character very, very well. He actually auditioned for one of the other roles, but when he auditioned, he had the flu. He had a temperature of 104. So he was very sort of spacey. He was very not quite there. And that gave him the perfect feeling for the role that he eventually got.
Aren't you chilly?
No, I feel good. Feel good. Am I going too fast for you?
No, no.
In 1984, Kevin Bacon rose to stardom with his performance in Footloose.
Footloose is a sort of serendipitous moment. It didn't have an awful lot on the page when you looked at it. Kevin Bacon read for the part of Ren, the lead guy. It was a strange story of a town that had banned dancing. And it's this kind of, it's Utah town where they're led by a very strong minister who sort of feels dancing is sort of the devil's thing. And all the teens can't do what they want unless they sneak out of town to the neighboring town. And into this town would come this character Ren with his single mother, to be played by Diane Wiest. And of course, he's a guy who loves to dance and express him throughout the dance. And he leads all the kind of downtrodden teens of this Utah town in a kind of frenzy of waking up to themselves because of dance. And when you say that, it sounds quite preposterous. But it's a film that's sort of somehow become more relevant, I think, in the America of today. It's a kind of exuberant 80s film imbued with a sort of 1950s, 1960s American musical spirit. Herbert Ross was the director, and he was very experienced in the musical. And I think brought that kind of knowingness that with a musical you have to mix reality and fantasy in a very kind of subtle way. And the film is a real film, like people dance for real, these aren't musical numbers. But there's a sense of the musical about it, and the use of this great 80s soundtrack.
Despite the success of Footloose, Kevin Bacon admitted that he had a career slump in the rest of the 1980s, with the films Quicksilver, She's Having a Baby, and The Big Picture. But in 1990, he found success once again with Tremors.
Must be a million of them. Nope, just one. Come on.
Tremors is a ludicrous film, and Kevin Bacon had taken it initially for money. He thought that it was going very badly, and at one point he did say to his wife in the middle of the street, "Oh my lord, what have I done? I'm in a film about giant worms. This is the end of my career." There's something about the film, though, and the way it comes together that made it an enormous cult hit, and it's regarded with such affection that he has at one point said this is the only film that he would do a sequel to. And because it's essentially a movie which is an extended game of feet off the ground. He plays sort of a redneck guy out in a hick town where these enormous worms will then burst through the ground and eat you if they sense any tremors on the surface of the ground. So if you're walking across the ground, you get eaten by a giant worm. I mean, the script is pretty corny as well. He gets to say some great lines when he's packing up a truckload of guns. He's talking to his friend who lives the survivalist gun-toting life, and he goes, "Well, I guess I can't take the mickey out of your lifestyle anymore." So it's all very, very tongue-in-cheek, and there's a superb sequence at the end where they're all standing on the roof of a house trying to fend off this enormous exploding ground worth of giant worms. So there's nothing about this that's really going to hit, he was never going to get an Oscar for this role. But it's a beautifully enjoyable piece of B-movie horror monster fiction, which really does know that its tongue is very firmly in his cheek. And he plays it like that, and it's a joy for that.
In the same year as Tremors, Bacon also starred in the medical thriller Flatliners.
Flatliners is a very interesting horror film directed by Joel Schumacher, set within a medical school where the students are trying to work out what happens after death. And so they start experimenting, dangerous experiments, where they basically sort of kill themselves for 2 minutes and then brought back with the idea that they can remember or record anything that they've seen in those very few minutes that they were basically flatlining. It's a wonderful idea. And what Schumacher does with this film is it actually turns it into a kind of neo-Gothic movie. Kevin Bacon is probably the sort of sensible one. He's the one, or trainee doctor, he's really the one who actually tries to keep everything together. He doesn't want them to risk too much. He's idealistic, he's up for the experiment, but he doesn't want, like some of the others, and so that already gave him a kind of authority over the rest of his fellow actors. He himself, of course, goes under, and he does it. But the problem is that all of these characters, when they do go into their sort of mini deaths, they find something in their past that has been troubling them, and then they somehow or other, by some quaint device, drag it into the present world. That's the sort of horror fantasy element of it.
Following Flatliners, Bacon joined the all-star cast of Oliver Stone's JFK.
I remember he had some kind of thing wrong with his leg. He's limp. Don't get me wrong, he's not one of those limp wrists. He's a Butch John. I mean, you meet him on the street, you never snap. You can play poker with him, go fishing with him, man. You never snapped in a million years. One night we was over at Dave Ferry's place having a party. That was sometime late in the summer of '63. There was about 9 or 10 people there. Cubans, friends of Dave's, been doing some stuff in the bush with him. The place was a mess, man. Dave's mind was a mess.
Tremors marked something of a turning point for Kevin Bacon. He felt that his career had got into the wrong place. And so in this conversation with his agent, who was also Oliver Stone's agent, they said, we're going to drop down the pecking order of the cast list and just do some serious roles. I need to rebuild my reputation as a proper actor. And the first opportunity that came along was JFK. And in this, he plays, it's a very small part. He is probably on screen for about maybe 5-10 minutes at most. He is a male prostitute, and the film is about Kevin Costner trying to solve what he believes is the mystery surrounding JFK's assassination. And this guy O'Keefe, who Kevin Bacon plays, remembers a particular evening when he was out with a particular client and some unusual behavior. And so it's it's a small but incredibly significant part because it demonstrates very clearly his range and his understanding and his commitment to any particular part. It's a really interesting role to watch.
All right, Willie. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
All right. Hey, you know, you're not a bad-looking man, Mr. Galson. Not bad looking at all. I get out of here, I'm gonna come see you. We got some fun.
In 1982, Kevin Bacon starred in A Few Good Men.
Dan Caffey.
Smiling Jack Ross.
Welcome to the big time.
You think so?
Let's hope for Dawson and Downey's sake you practice law better than you play softball.
Unfortunately for Dawson and Downey, I don't do anything better than I play softball. I'm out of here, Janelle.
Bye.
See you when I get back from Cuba.
Say hi to Castro for me.
Will do. What are we looking at?
They plead guilty, we drop the conspiracy and the conduct unbecoming. 20 years, they're home in half that time.
I want 12.
Can't do it.
They called the ambulance, Jack.
Look, I don't care if they called the Avon lady. They killed a Marine.
The rag was tested for poison. The autopsy lab reports, they all say the same thing. Maybe, maybe not.
Chief of Internal Medicine at the Guantanamo Bay Naval Hospital says he's sure.
What do you know about Code Reds?
Oh, man.
I think it's a mark of how Kevin Bacon's re-established himself in acting terms and movie terms, that he becomes part of the ensemble of A Few Good Men. Directed by Rob Reiner and written by Aaron Sorkin, it had been a stage play on Broadway. And it's a military courtroom thriller that Reiner was going to turn into a movie. And it was one of those sort of prestige projects that sort of gathered up a great deal of momentum, because in the part of Caffey, the lead lawyer in the case is played by Tom Cruise, and the part of the colonel, the heart of the story, is played by Jack Nicholson. So this was Tom Cruise, the big new star, versus Jack Nicholson, the old great, a battle of wills. And it's all about the murder of a Marine who was failing, and whether this had been done by orders or not within the sort of the Marine base that's headed up by Jack Nicholson, a Code Red. And it was Kyra Sedgwick who said to her husband, said to Kevin Bacon, do the good guy. You can do this. And you should fill that character, who could just be a bit exposition-y, who could just be a functional part. I think you can give something to that. And she's exactly right. He's perfect for this film. In fact, vital to this film. While the showmanship, the showboating is given to Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. And Nicholson, of course, has his glorious moment. You can't handle the truth and all those kind of things that have gone down in movie history. Watch that film again and you're clear that it's the engine of that film, the clarification of what's at stake come through Kevin Bacon's character.
On midnight of September 6th, the accused entered the barracks room of their platoon mate, PFC William Santiago. They woke him up, tied his arms and legs with tape, and forced a rag into his throat. A few minutes later, a chemical reaction called lactic acidosis caused his lungs to begin bleeding. He drowned in his own blood and was pronounced dead at 37 minutes past midnight. These are the facts of the case, and they are undisputed.
After the success of A Few Good Men, Bacon starred opposite Meryl Streep in The River Wild.
It's a really bad hole on the left. You don't want to hit that.
No.
Come on, Max! Time to go!
Honey, would you go up and get her? Stay to the right, and if you do go swimming, which you won't, I promise, but if you do, point your feet downstream and hold onto your jacket. Make sure it's buckled real tight. Just let the current take you. Remember, you don't command the river. You let the river command you.
Hey, I don't live my life like that, and I don't think you do either.
The River Wild is, well, it's a film which is really essentially a two-hander. Although there's a cast of 5 or 6, it's really a two-hander between Meryl Streep and Kevin Bacon. Meryl Streep is a river guide who is going off on a family holiday with her husband, who loves the office and hates coming home, and her grumpy teenage son and their dog. And Kevin Bacon is the leader of this gang, these 3 villains, who are kind of pursuing, and we don't really know why they keep cropping up. But eventually they wind up on the raft with Meryl Streep, and Kevin Bacon takes over the raft. He takes control of it. It's a great line to David Strathairn, who is the husband, saying, look, I need your wife to get me down the river. I need your son to make sure that she does it. you and your dog, you're expendable. He was cast because he reminded the director, Curtis Hanson, a little bit of Robert Mitchum. And whilst that may sound strange if you've only seen Footloose, actually in this film he does have a Robert Mitchum air to him, that kind of switch between darkness and light, which is quite mesmerizing.
Kevin Bacon would follow up The River Wild with Murder in the First, before starring in one of the biggest hits of his career, Apollo 13.
Aquarius, this is Houston. We expect loss of signal in approximately 10 seconds.
So long, Earth. Catch you on the flip side. When you go into the shadow of the moon and the moon is between you and the sun, that you see stars that are more brilliant than anything you've ever seen on the clearest nights here on Earth. And then you pass into the lunar sunrise over the lunar surface, and it must be an awe-inspiring sight. I can't wait to see it myself.
Kevin Bacon plays Jack Swigert, who is the last member of the team, the crew of the mission, and he comes in late to replace another crew member who had to drop out. This is fascinating because, first of all, Jim Lovell, who is the mission commander, played by Tom Hanks, didn't want him. He really objects to having his crew sort of, disbanded, as it were, and sort of replaced by somebody else. It's not that he doesn't trust him, but Swigert has never been on a mission. It gives Kevin Bacon immediately that wonderful stance of being the outsider, the person that you're not sure about. Immediately. And that's the kind of role, in a funny sort of way, that he has always played, or very often does play. He's the guy who's slightly outside of the group, the ensemble. The results are, as you see on the screen, they are amazing. It is a wonderfully tense film, and it is about as authentic as possible in terms of recreating that near fatal mission, in which, thankfully, came out okay.
We confirm shutdown, Jack.
Lunar module now in control.
Roger that, Houston. This is Odyssey, signing off.
Bacon would follow up one star-studded film with another in 1996's Sleepers.
I could see how you might forget us. Yeah. We were just something for you and your friends to play with.
It's a little harder for us to forget. You gave us so much more to remember.
Can't quite place us, can you, Chief? Let me help you out. You're looking at John Riley and Tommy Marcano.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Sleepers, I think, says a lot about Kevin Bacon and the risks he's willing to take and the storyteller he wants to be. It's an adaptation of the true life story of the author Lorenzo Carcaterra, who was a juvenile delinquent in his Hell's Kitchen youth and went into juvenile prison, was caught, and was abused, sexually abused within prison. And later, when he's out of prison, and the story is about two of his friends who were also in prison who find the original abuser, the prison guard. And Barry Levinson was directing again and put together another amazing ensemble cast. You have Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro in smaller parts in it. And Kevin Bacon came in to meet Barry and said, well, what have you got for me? He said, I want you to be Noakes. And Noakes is the prison guard. And Kevin Bacon's like, okay. But he didn't, he got it straight away. And he said it's like the important thing with playing such a terrible person, such a dark idea, an abuser of children, a rapist, but I think he's very interested in the idea of interpretation and the idea of exploring areas of the human psyche that aren't nice, that aren't pleasant, but it's about what you can do as an actor, and that's, I think, why he did it.
In the late 1990s, Bacon would star in a wide range of pictures, from the supernatural thriller Stir of Echoes to the romantic comedy Picture Perfect. But one of his biggest successes was 1998's Wild Things.
Is there some reason why you're here?
Curiosity, I guess.
About what? How to improve your breaststroke?
No, actually, I was curious about how you see things working out for you and Sam and Susie.
Excuse me?
Three of you gonna go down to the Caribbean together and live happily ever after? Because, see, the thing about it is that threesomes rarely work out.
You're out of your mind.
I mean, it's hard enough for one person to keep a secret, let alone three. Especially when two of them are in love. You and Sam don't really want that little pillhead around now that you have the money, do you?
Wild Things is a very densely plotted thriller, which is also a kind of vaguely erotic sex thriller. And it is set in Miami. It has Denise Richards, Neve Campbell. It has, in a very unlikely casting, Bill Murray. And it has Kevin Bacon as a cop. The thing about the Kevin Bacon cop is his morality is very complex and constantly changing. And he has to play someone who is able to fool you at a variety of different stages of the film as to what his true intentions are. So you're never 100% certain as to what he actually believes. And yet he conveys to you that you think this time you finally found the real person. So he peels off a layer after layer after layer. He said it was one of the trashiest scripts he'd ever read. And it is beautifully trashy. I mean, there is something enjoyable about watching Kevin Bacon and Bill Murray act together in a script that ludicrous. But he does it well. He throws it in and he manages to, he fools you. His job is to fool you, and he fools you.
Am I right? Sam sell you on the idea right up front of whacking Susie? Hey! That's murder, kid.
Police, God, get a life.
You're good, you know that?
Hollow Man is really interesting and really dark. It's an attempt to sort of redo H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man, but in a sort of modern angle on his sci-fi. He wants to bring a kind of moral conundrum, some kind of debate into the way he does classic genres. And with Hollow Man, he was really interested in this idea of what happens to you as a person if the rules no longer apply. If you're invisible, what are your immoral responsibilities? You can get away with anything. What happens to you in that point? I think he just said it was one of the hardest films he ever had to make because he had to endure this makeup, special effects process, and he had to sort of endure being this odd form of acting, this kind of not interacting with his fellow actors, moving around a set as if they can't see him because according to the plot, they can't. But it really is about the movement in the frame, of this kind of blur. Yeah, you do feel his presence. It works well in terms of, it's almost sort of a chilling idea of that. You as an audience are going, is he in this scene? Am I seeing him? Am I seeing a ripple? What's going on? And that kind of creepiness, I think, is what clicks in the film.
In 2003, Bacon worked with director Clint Eastwood on Mystic River.
I know, maybe we ought to grab a lawyer out of one of these BMWs up here, huh? Hey, Divine. What you looking at?
The old neighborhood.
We're all done over there, Sean, but I can stick around if you need anything.
Oh, no, I think we're good, thanks.
A few of us are going to the Cantab after.
Oh, no, I don't think so, Jen. Thanks. Thanks anyway.
So the wife left you, what, 6 months ago?
So
Jenny Cog on there with the body and the voice and the cuffs. This girl, she makes gay guys rethink their orientation, you know what I'm saying?
Mystic River stars Tim Robbins, Sean Penn, Kevin Bacon, Lawrence Fishburne, and it's directed by Clint Eastwood. Now, Kevin Bacon signed up for this film on the strength of it being directed by Clint Eastwood. He always wanted to work with Clint Eastwood, and he loved the process of making the film.
Kevin Bacon plays a cop, and he ends up having to investigate the death of Sean Penn's daughter, who has been murdered. All of this is bound up with something that happened in the past. This is a very, very complex emotional thriller. It has extraordinary performances from everybody in it. And I think this shows how Kevin Bacon works so well in an ensemble. He works brilliantly with Sean Penn, and it's one of Sean Penn's finest roles, actually. He works brilliantly with Tim Robbins. And it's one of those films for which everybody stands to have enormous credit.
Along with Mystic River, Bacon would also achieve enormous critical success with 2008's Frost Nixon.
I bet you it did. What? Come out of his own pocket. You know he couldn't look me in the eye.
Well, I hear the networks aren't biting. Without the networks, the ad agencies still want to know. So if you ask me, there's a good chance this whole thing may never happen.
Really? So that meeting we just had might have cost him $200,000?
Correct.
Had I known that, I would have offered him a cup of tea. Say, did you notice his shoes?
No.
Italian. No laces. What do you think? My people tried to get me to wear a pair like that.
I think a man's shoes should have laces, sir.
You do?
Yeah. Personally, I find those Italian shoes very effeminate.
Frost Nixon, directed by Ron Howard, is another example of you put Kevin Bacon into a film and you just add something to your concept. You add something to your ensemble. You give heft to whatever you're doing. And I think it's an example of Kevin Bacon's kind of drive not to do the obvious thing, that he doesn't take any of the roles in Frost Nixon that might be called heroic. The David Frost band who are justified in attacking Nixon. He actually takes the part of Nixon's chief of staff, the guy who's saying, don't do this, be careful, we've got to be, what are we after here? Is this a rehabilitation? He's the guy whispering in Nixon's ear. Nixon, of course, wonderfully played by Frank Langella. No, it's not one of the big showy roles, but I think what we're interested in is how do you play a guy who was part of the inner circle of Nixon? What does that mean? What is it like to be someone who believes in Nixon? Does he believe in Nixon? Is it just a part he plays, this character? And he's not on screen an awful lot, but he's intelligent enough as an actor to kind of interrogate that idea. And the film is about that. It's about interrogation. It's about a great TV interview done by David Frost, played by Michael Sheen, and Langella's Nixon, who was pardoned, so he never went to trial. And this was seen as a kind of trial by television, a chance for America to bring Nixon the court of public opinion. So it was a great television event. And in fact, I think from Ron Howard's point of view, working from a great script by Peter Morgan, it was as much a film about television as it was about politics. It was about this moment, about how you interview. But it's certainly a riveting kind of dissection of this pivotal television event.
It didn't sound too arrogant or self-serving.
Oh, not at all. You sounded controlled, even-handed, statesman-like.
Oh, good.
I'll continue exactly the same way. Long answers control the space. Don't let him in.
Okay, gotcha.
In the later stages of Kevin Bacon's career, he has continued to surprise audiences with the wide range of roles he has taken on.
Kevin Bacon is still acting, and he's still very much a presence. He has done City on the Hill and The Following for television, for example. And he always graces the screen with some new kind of personality. I think one of the things about Kevin Bacon is that he's eminently castable because he's not ordinary. He has a kind of mature but adolescent charm. He's still got, even in his maturity, he's still got that sort of adolescent swagger, which gives him a kind of edge over many of his contemporaries.
If you think of the arc of his career, the span of roles he's played from you know, a gay prostitute who's been spying on some presidential schemes to proto-fascistic kid at a university through to the advisor to the president, you know, to the dancing hero Footloose. Like, he can do almost anything. He can be a star. He can be a character actor. He can do what he wants.
You know, what I think I love about Kevin Bacon, he's one of the few actors who genuinely seems to enjoy being an actor. He enjoys being on set. He enjoys the process. He's grateful for what the work is. You know, so many actors are tortured and they've got to go, oh, am I right or wrong? And I know Kevin Bacon probably has dark nights of the soul and worries, but he genuinely seems to love the process of acting. He says, yeah, I can do the red carpets, I can do the interviews, but all I want to be doing is acting.